Minister Abiy arrives in Eritrea for a 2-day visit. And the US lauds PM Abiy's commitment to look into alleged human rights violations in Tigray. Hello and many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed arrived in Asmara for a 2-day working visit to Eritrea. According to Minister of Information of Eritrea, Yemane Gebremeskel, President Isaias Afwerki accorded a warm welcome to the Prime Minister and his delegation upon their arrival at Asmara International Airport. U.S. Senator Chris Coons commended Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's commitment to probe into alleged human rights violations in Tigray. Speaking at a business meeting, Senator Coons said he is hopeful that the border dispute between Sudan and Ethiopia, as well as disputes surrounding the $4.6 billion GERD, will be resolved peacefully. Goshu Melissau has the following compilation.
Thank you, Chairman Menendez, Ranking Member Risch. I am so encouraged.
Presenting reports on his recent trips to various countries, including Cuba and Ethiopia, Senator Coons appreciated Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's willingness to probe into alleged human rights violations in Tigray.
For those watching, I'll just comment that there are resolutions all across our agenda today that are designed to promote democracy and our core values in our relations towards Venezuela, Cuba, Syria, Burma, and as well Ethiopia. And I want to thank Senator Cardin and Ranking Member Risch for your leadership on this resolution. As was mentioned, I just returned from a weekend spent as President Biden's personal emissary, meeting with Prime Minister Abiy and a whole range of senior Ethiopian officials and others in the international community. And I want to thank you for allowing changes to the resolution to recognize that trip, which I believe was constructive. I just want to note that there have already been some positive public statements by Prime Minister Abiy in the last 24 hours, recognizing the need for accountability for human rights violations, the first public acknowledgement of the presence of Eritrean troops, and just within the last few hours.
It is to be recalled that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told members of the 547-seat parliament last Tuesday that any damage to the people is unacceptable and that the government will look into violations and hold those responsible for the violations accountable.
Positive statements about the possible resolution of the border dispute with Sudan and the path forward on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. There are other issues that we must address: full humanitarian access, the cessation of hostilities, the path towards free and fair elections. And I look forward to working with each of you on these issues and hopefully to there being more progress. So thank you. There are a number of other important items on today's agenda. I'll just briefly thank Senator Portman for his partnership in the Tropical Forest and Coral Reef Conservation Restoration Act and a number of other items like the anniversary of the U.S. African Development Foundation. Thank you for the opportunity to work with all of you on a bipartisan basis, and I'm hopeful we can make progress in addressing the challenging situation in Tigray and Ethiopia.
Senator Coons is also optimistic that the Ethio-Sudan border dispute as well as the GERD issue will be resolved peacefully. It is to be recalled that Biden's emissary spent time to discuss with Abiy Ahmed and other senior government officials on the current situation in the state of Tigray.
A prominent political commentator on East African affairs, Umar Reddy, said Western powers have ulterior motives when they claim to intervene in Ethiopia's internal affairs. Afar People's Party leadership also said Ethiopia will never allow any foreign power to breach its sovereignty. Emmanuel Jorge reports.
The United States is alarmed by the humanitarian and human rights situation in Ethiopia.
Some Western powers allying with the US and UN have been urging for sanctions on Ethiopia in a meeting of the Security Council of the United Nations over the issue of human rights violation pertaining to the law enforcement operation in the North Ethiopia. A political commentator on East African affairs, Umar Reddy, said some in Western world are claiming to intrude in Ethiopia's internal affair, having a hidden agenda than being concerned about human rights violation.
The previous regime had an extended arm that turned Somalia, South Sudan, into a chaotic war scene. So they were weapons for the Western powers. So they didn't say anything. Had they been concerned for human rights violations, they could have spoken about human rights issues elsewhere in Ethiopia. What they are trying to do in northern Ethiopia is they are trying to save their partners in crime, in regional crimes. So it is a double standard. It's not about human rights. It's not about access to relief. It's not about that. It's about just forcing the Ethiopian government to accepting their terms, and at the same time trying to save this criminal clique that has been helping them do their dirty job across the region.
Ethiopian ambassador to Switzerland, Zaneba Kabeda, on his part said all Ethiopians across the world should work to unveil the truth about the law enforcement operation in the North Ethiopia.
The attack, the massacres they have been claiming in Aksum, there are a lot of evidences now coming up that they brought pictures from Nigeria and other countries which has never been happened in Aksum, in Ethiopia, in Aksum. So all the false allegations and claims by the TPLF and their cronies inside and outside is being disproved on a daily basis. What we need to do is continuing disseminating the correct information all over the world, wherever we are, to the international community, and also campaigning against their disinformation and the misinformation.
A leadership of opposition political party in Ethiopia pointed out that Ethiopia will never compromise its sovereignty rather than working together with developmental partners.
We have internal issues, and we understand that we might need some international support. But we also know that we have been free since we have established as a country, so that we will never allow any, whether they are international or any other organized groups, to intervene and challenge the sovereignty of Ethiopia in any case.
نقولها بالصوت العالي: لا للاحتراب، لا للخراب، نعم للوئام، نعم للسلام، لا للدمار، نعم للإعمار، لا للسلاح، نعم للإصلاح.
هذه رسالة سلام من شعب محب للسلام، من شعب وحدته الجغرافيا وروح الأخوة حتى دخل التاريخ من أوسع أبوابه.
بسلام، بأمان، بود. سلام، أمان، ود. نفس هذه الكلمات تفهم في أثيوبيا، ونفس هذه الكلمات تفهم في السودان. السلام والأمان والود، نضيف عليها المحبة، نضيف عليها الاحترام، نضيف عليها التعاون. هذا هو ما ينبغي أن يكون عليه والعلاقة بين السودان وأثيوبيا. هاتين دولتين جارتين شقيقتين صديقتين، روابط ومشتركات أكثر كثير جدا مما يربط ويشترك فيه كثير من الدول غيره.
لا يمكننا أن نجني السلام بالحرب. السلام هو الخط الوحيد والحقيقي للرقي البشري. الحوار العقلاني هو السبيل السليم لحل الخلافات، لا بالنزاع والحرب.
نعم للسلام، نعم للسلام، ومليون لا للحرب، مليون لا للعنصرية، مليون لا للبندقية، مليون لا للتفرقة.
فندعو للوحدة والتكامل والإخاء والمحبة من أجل مصلحة الشعبين الشقيقين.
فلا للحرب بين شعبين يقطنان في بلد واحد، سعى المستعمر لرسم جغرافيا تفرقنا، بيد أنه ذهب في مهب الريح بسبب صمودنا، مظهرا أن قوتنا تكمن في وحدتنا.
لا للحرب، فأنا تربيت تحت أرض إثيوبية سودانية، لا لصوت المدفع والبندقيات، نعم لصوت العقل والسلام.
جينا بمليون سلام. Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. African leaders must prepare themselves to properly handle the stark truth that unless the continent appropriately copes with its internal needs, it is highly likely to end up prey to external meddling. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made the remark while addressing the Russia-Africa International Inter-Party Conference. Appreciating Russia's partnership in Africa's independence movement and fight against counterproductive interference, the chair of the Prosperity Party, Abiy Ahmed, has expressed his confidence that Russia and Africa will uplift their collaboration to new heights. Shifa Raulak tells you more.
In accordance with the agreements reached at the Russia-Africa Summit, and in order to prepare for the next Russia-Africa Summit, at the initiative of the United Russia Party, an international inter-party conference was held dubbed Russia-Africa, Reviving Traditions. The meeting has featured the participation of over 20 parliamentary majority parties from African countries. In his address to the conference, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Russia has been Africa's key ally in its struggle against oppression, foreign intrusion and colonial slavery.
I want to quote an African proverb, open quote, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. End of quote. I regret to acknowledge that we have not yet won the battle against enemies within. Chronic poverty, inequality, unemployment, identity-based politics, and violence. It is because of such enemies within that we stand vulnerable to external interference. In order to respond to the basic demands of our people, to defeat the enemies within and stand strong against interference, we must revisit our traditions and solidify our friendship and renew our time-tested solidarity.
Prime Minister Abiy has also elaborated on Ethiopia's indigenous philosophy of Madamar, or synergy, to the participants of the inter-party conference.
Madamar exemplifies coming together, working in sync, with purpose and vision for a common destiny, as our guiding light in everything we do. At a fundamental level, Madamar is a call to our nation, Africa, and its people to stay away from the dangerous cycle of always throwing away the past and starting with a clean slate to build on the accumulated wisdom of our forefathers, to take the best from our past, to invest in an understanding of our concrete problems and adapt our solutions as we go, and in the process, leave a legacy of hope to our children.
Explaining about his party, Premier Abiy says the Prosperity Party believes in economic growth, meeting the wholesome needs of humanity.
The material, the emotional, and the intellectual. Growth must be situated in a political space where one engages with the big questions of society, where one's body is nurtured and one's safety is not in question. Growth must create opportunities for individuals to express their talents and translate it to personal wins and collective improvements.
The Ethiopian Prime Minister has finally advised African leaders to open their eyes to the stark truth that unless the continent properly copes with its internal needs, it will open door to external meddling.
I wish to remind you of the uncomfortable truth that unless we respond to the internal needs of our communities, our countries, and our dear continent, we will fall prey to interference by others near and far. Africa and the Russia Federation have a tradition of questioning, challenging the status quo, and imagining new possibilities. We have a tradition of setting philosophical precedents that have helped humanity pause and wonder. Let us indeed revive those traditions.
The Premier has also expressed his confidence that the 2022 Russia-Africa Summit will provide historic platforms for lasting partnership between Africa and Russia.
For thousands of years, the peoples of the Horn of Africa have revered the mighty Nile. Its spiritual significance to these lands has been enshrined in poetry, music, and spoken word for time immemorial. And in a land that is holy to Christians and Muslims and followers of many faiths, these waters hold a place in the hearts of millions of Africans. And in all this time, the waters have flowed with only a dream of being able to harness and help bring millions of women, children, and men out from darkness. Today, a new dawn is upon us, when a continent can rejoice in unison. The grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam stands as a beacon of hope for all Africans. The use of a hydroelectric dam which does not consume the water, but rather allows it to continue its flow to our brothers and sisters in Sudan and Egypt, will finally allow the lights to turn on in all of the African Nile Basin countries. Since the dawn of time, Ethiopia, who contributes 80% plus of the waters, has used 0%. Today, more than 60% of Ethiopians do not have access to basic electricity. Ethiopia has watched as her soil and minerals be swept away to irrigate the cotton farms of Egypt, while her mothers still carry firewood upon their backs and sit in darkness. The time for a fair and equitable share of the Nile is now. The time for all 11 African nations who feed the Nile to share in its life-giving potential is now. This is truly a dam of inclusivity, of kindness, and of shared prosperity. Light, energy, education, food security, and a chance for prosperity for millions. This is Africa's dam. This is our dam. This is my dam.
Scholars describe the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as the landmark of all Ethiopians. In an exclusive interview with ETV, this expert said the dam is a means to eradicate poverty from Ethiopia. Kasahun Chani has the detail.
Political analyst Umar Radi talked to ETV English. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam should be considered a source of national pride and wealth, citing its importance to eradicate poverty from the country.
Ethiopia didn't get the blessing of anyone, be it Egypt or Sudan for that matter, or the World Bank or Washington. Ethiopia didn't get the blessing of these countries or institutions when it started the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It is so because it didn't need any blessing. It is in its natural right, it is in its sovereign right to build the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
Meanwhile, another scholar from the Ethiopian American Civic Council, Deacon Yosef, underscored that Ethiopia does not intend to cause any significant harm to downstream countries, but striving to utilize its natural resources.
The way we have developed the narrative, what we see in the internal even conflict itself, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam are all together a single story. They're all interconnected. It is not a surprise that we have what we have in terms of the internal conflict and turmoil that we're facing today if it was not for the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Our historical enemies, they find that this is the perfect storm season to put as much pressure on Ethiopia, to destabilize Ethiopia, to weaken Ethiopia.
Omar further accentuated that the dam would have no impact on the natural flow of the Nile River.
It is technically proven by experts that the dam meets all technical standards, all engineering technical standards that would make sure it doesn't harm the two downstream countries. First of all, it is for hydropower generation purpose. It's not irrigation dam. In accordance to international conventions where Ethiopia considers the needs and the interests of the downstream countries, where Ethiopia is filling the dam in extended period of time. It agreed to fill the dam in extended period of time. It's about 7 years, I guess. And last year happens to be generous. The rain happened to be generous. This year looks like it's going to be the same. I believe the construction is going steadily, and there is an evident level of seriousness on the side of the government and the project owners to make sure to see this project through. And I believe the second phase of the filling of the dam would happen, whether Egypt likes it or not.
He added that no one who thinks of Africa's progress can ever contemplate the blowing up of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, not to engage the parties to sign an agreement through negotiations once and for all end all the dangerous speculations and diswishes of Africa's enemies. Deacon Yosef also cited the experience of building various dams even in the United States of America is common to prosper the nation, and the same goes right in the context of Ethiopia.
The Grand Ethiopian Dam is not just a regular dam. It is a dam that will potentially can take Ethiopia out of the designation of a donor recipient nation to to a second economic world. And they know that. So this is a far-reaching impact. You know, one of the things that most people talk about, don't talk as much, there is a dam in the next state that from where I live called the Hoover Dam. And the Hoover Dam, before the Hoover Dam, United States was building many small dams every week, every month. They have hundreds and hundreds of these dams. But the Hoover Dam, it became the final dam that really empowered the United States industrial machines. So much so, 15 years after the dam was completed, the Second World War was launched and the United States got involved in it. Many historians write that the United States would not have been able to win the Second World War if it wasn't for the Hoover Dam. It is that fundamental, even for a great power like United States. So you can just imagine how powerful, what it means for a nation like Ethiopia, that throughout history, that we gave away all our natural resources. 80% of our water leaves our boundary, our borders.
As to the scholars, any country of the world shouldn't attempt to destabilize Ethiopia with Earth's initiation to build the Abai Dam.